Good evening, fellow men, ladies, gentlemen, on another Sunday. Bad weather, not good. Glastonbury didn't look good, from what I can gather. Lithuania's been very naughty. Hence, Sir General Patrick Saunders suggesting that all the soldiers go and fight because Boris and his handlers have got excited and they want to kick Russia's head in, and also starting up the Blue Pacific Alliance because they want everybody to start calling China names. So it's playground stuff again. You know, I fell out with them, come and join my gang, and you've got to hate them and call them names and all that. So all that's going on. A load of nonsense if you ask me, but potentially, as we discussed last week, off go our soldiers. Hoity-toity for the Great Reset and all its freaks. So another interesting week we've got going there. Hello Slipknot, how are you doing, my good man? I'm good. I don't know if there's anybody here apart from Slipknot. So who knows these things? So as I say, interesting week. Definitely going and moving for this Third World War scenario, or rather, is it a perpetual war, isn't it, that they're trying to set up? So that works in sync with the Brave New World and all this H.G. Wells skullduggery that has been put out everywhere. Interesting week. And again, I've been watching a bit of the old archaics. So I've been thinking today. My little pea brain has been active and it's been thinking about Tartaria. Because I've written about Tartaria quite a while ago. Hello Paul. Good, how are you doing, mate? And so taking on board this reset or Phoenix cycle, the 138 Phoenix cycle. So we've got to start looking at it from that perspective. So we can see, or it's been uncovered, all this architecture that was through the 1800s and previous. This technology that appears to be on top of a lot of it. I've said this before, but when you look at the some of the architecture of not necessarily the intricate buildings, but the general run-of-the-mill buildings, they're still beautiful. The architecture comes direct from Constantinople. And you can see that clearly when you just look at the wall that surrounds Constantinople, which were built in those days. It's that kind of colour coding and style. So what's happened in this last few years? Well, you've got this idea that, oh, wait a minute, there were a huge empire in Tartaria and it covered the entire world and it's being hidden. Okay, so we've all looked at that, we've seen it. I've written a piece about it. Good evening, Kerry. But if we start to look at this 138 Phoenix cycle, because like a lumpy, this is exactly what it is that sort of overshadows the lives of the elite. And I'm talking about at the highest heights here. Because in essence, there are entire families from way back right to today, and hopefully they're projecting this on into the future. They live under that auspice. That's all they're about, is keeping the lines, the power going, and ensuring it gets a chance to get through the coming catastrophe. And that this is where your interconnection at the top, this is how they're operating. That's their agreed ethos in relation to how they rule the world. And of course, it's infighting, as we know, so they are separate, but yet when it comes to that agenda, they all know full well the future lines depend on them securing whatever it is they can create in that 138 time period that they've got. As I've said last week, we are now at the point where, after the Second World War, they pumped tons of money into the public arena so that we could all have access to it. So we could do what we've done, build the systems, build the technology back, etc., fund the underground shenanigans, fund the military-industrial complex, fund the deindustrialisation of the West, and paid to be put in the East. So we've all paid for that. That's been in the last 100 years. And you can see now they're monopolising everything. The state, which communism monopolised all our private enterprise, all our civic state, judiciary, security, everything has been monopolised to the state, and now the corporations have took over the state, which is capitalism. So ultimately they're operating to the same agenda, which is monopoly. And now it's the money. They've been sucking the money out since, 2008 when we bailed them out, the banks. And we've been doing nothing but handing all our assets and currency and money, value, gold, everything. Showing that you can say in this last, 40 years, they've advanced this, pulling it all back onto the self. So that's what they've done. So everything that we achieved, or we thought we'd achieved in 20th century, has pretty much been took off us. They're about to take fuel off, all this kind of shenanigans, gas, get you all fixed on this electric system that Lucifer would made clear that's how he'll trap mankind. So you've got all that going on now. Now, if we look at the 1800s, let's not forget that the Industrial Revolution began in the 1700s. And this is when, in Blighty, you had the mills, all the intense nonsense that we're aware of. And that, of course, then raised up this massive economy for the bankers, etc. So it was an important part of them recreating the technology, as it were. But towards the end of the 1800s, it's pretty clear, as we're suffering now, they took our toys off us from the Industrial Revolution and then took all the money off us through the 1800s. The stock market, 1815, through Nathan Rothschild. Previous to that, the English monarch, or the British monarch, that were also took. So they pretty much bagged all that within the 1800s because, again, they were preparing for the 1902 Phoenix Pass. And then it didn't happen as they thought, but then it obviously happened in a big way because we've seen this evidence in this mud flood stuff. You know what I mean? Or the Starfort stuff that you see over in Siberia area, but then all over the world. Not quite as old as they're making out, I don't think. But more importantly, there's nothing to do with Tartaria at all. That's the blag in order to shift people's sympathies over to Russia. As communist sort of ethos thrusts itself across the West, only to be picked up, as we said, by the corporations in monopoly again. So through the 1800s, they dismantled what we had as technology through the Industrial Revolution, which I would suggest included using that technology that we see on those buildings, the architecture. So it had nothing to do with an empire over there. It was the technological age that we had up until they started dismantling it, ready for this reset. They started wars. We had Crimea, you know, we had Boer War, then we had the First War. So during that time, we had Napoleonic Wars. So the militaries have been built up to huge proportions, which is important because when they go underground, they go in underground with the technology, everything they've kept that they think they need to survive for however many years. But more importantly, what they need more than anything is military capacity, because of course you can't come back after some kind of cataclysm and start taking control again and managing what's left if you don't have the military capacity to enforce it. Yeah. So that's you're great for all this nonsense that they've turned into aliens. All obfuscation. And so what I'd say again then is you're looking after 1902, all that we know. You know, the banks we know, the foundations we know, the massive corporations that we know, all began and were thrust back into the mix 1902, 1903. Because, of course, they were expecting something that didn't happen, and they had to quick smart put it all back in to regain control for the 20th century, the next 138 cycle, which is coming in 240. So when you're looking at Roswell, let's take that for example. So they've said, look, we've got this technology, but aliens give it us. Because we were all thick before. Remember, we're on an evolution path here. We're evolving. Yeah? So rather than just basically saying, oh, look, we found these plans from way back. No, they still had this technology from the 1800s to relaunch it in to this system, because obviously they created dumb from 1902, enough for everybody to go and get stuck into First World War. So they dumbed everybody down to that degree that they could get everybody to believe they had to go and offer themselves up for death, experimentation, vaccines, and God knows what else that they did in that war. The end result, of course, being a lot of death, a lot of heartbreak back in England, especially here, because there were so many men gone. Them that came back were so damaged, they couldn't function in a family unit. You know, it was just, they were in a right mess. I mean, I spoke to my grandparents when they were alive about this stuff. And basically that's all you got is, what a mess. It just wrecked them all, them that come back. So you can see that they were starting to dismantle what they'd created in the 1800s, because they obviously didn't necessarily need it to that capacity. But then, you know, so the two world wars in some sense were a way of building it in order that they could dismantle, or at least build it and move it into their own, which is the military-industrial complex. So, you know, there's no national militaries anymore. The security services now belong to this NATO system, which was set up by Tavistock, the Club of Rome. You know, it's like, now you can see what's happening. These huge secret societies, foundation, all the secret societies are operating for this agenda. Over and above the religions, because obviously the Rome was so vast that were a bit more difficult, obviously, then to protect. But they have changed everything. What it was isn't what it is, and what we've been led to believe, I would say, for quite a few hundred years, because it wouldn't have lasted so long, you know. But you can see that they're actually doing that again now. So Roswell was the method by which they could relaunch some of the technologies that they'd had before. But because it had been took out of the mix in the eyes of the populations, of course, and decades had gone past from 1902 to 1947, you know what I mean? You know, you're talking almost 2 generations had gone. So to release this technology again, they gave her the blag that it were alien technology, when in fact what it was just the technology that they'd had and took with them when they went into hiding from the 1890s, but then had to quick smart come back because, of course, there wasn't the devastation that they were expecting. So I think it's extremely important that we start looking at it like this, because why else would they be acting so ridiculously stupid in everything that they're doing? You know? It's global now for this. They've got the military-industrial complex runs everything. So the UN army, which I think is a danger with this getting our troops out of our countries, because if civil unrest kicks off, which it will when they start pressing down with this supply chain issue, there's no way on earth can the police deal with it. Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. Do you know what I'm saying? Which is WEFUN, but the military side of it, which is there's quite a big number of Chinese folks in it. So that'd be quite easy to have that force kick the living shit out of whichever nation they were in, if you weren't obedient, in the same manner as we've seen going on in Wuhan, whether it's just a fake up propaganda or it is actually real. That is the kind of character traits that the, let's just say them that are militarised in the East tend to go to, as they saw when they fought Japan in the Second World War. So, we do have to be aware of this. I don't like this fact that they're pushing all this nonsense about for pushing Third World War. It's just ridiculous, Chalker Westminster is pulling this together. To the children, infants, for God's sake. You've got Biden describing America in one word. Or something like that. They've got Muppets parading around, in the playground going, oh, you want to join my gang? We hate him over there. Will you join him and call him names? Yeah, all right then. That's all that's going on. Yet, you've got this new hoity-toity Sir General Patrick Saunders saying to all our lads, hey boys, you've had a fall out down at the bottom of your head. They need you lot to go and get shot. Go and get your arms chopped off and all that kind of shit, because they fell out. It's basically all it is. So I think, it's time to, we're all grown up a bit now and can see just how pathetic this game is that they're operating. And it is pathetic. It's beyond retarded. It's just infantile. It's so infantile. It's ridiculous, But the consequences are not going to be very good if it goes to its fruition. So I just wanted to get off my chest in relation to this, getting to the bottom of what it is they're actually doing. Why are they being so pathetic? Why are they intent on getting rid of so many folks through the medical? Well, Brave New World, there you go. It shows you that that's what it is. Nice, takes over everything. So another thing I've found out this week is that if you come over as an illegal immigrant, guess who gives you your paperwork to say, oh, well, no, you're not? A private company called the fucking police. Are you digging that? The police are dishing out paperwork to the components of the occupation who have turned up illegal and are then no longer classed as illegal. Did you know that? No, I didn't know that neither. Yeah? So when you get into this nice stuff, they're very clear when they're putting this nice thing together that it'll be the police that are going to enforce this. But now, so not the constabularies, the police force. So they have absolutely nothing to do with this nation at all. They're imperial shock troops. So if they're trying to get our military boys out, what are they planning for this autumn would be my caution, Hiya Paul, I am you, Jane, hello, good evening to you. So with that archaic kind of theme in mind, I thought we'd have a look. See, it's if you've not studied this kind of stuff, then I suppose you're taking people like Jason a bit on trust. But when you've already looked at this stuff and then you get his insights, you go back to it and then you can see that he is in fact pulling together what is out there rather than him being a prophet, as he's apt to say himself. So that's how he has to be looked at and approached, his work, and if you're applying it to what you already know, So a big part of that kind of data is the book of creation from the the What's It Bible. I forgot its bloody name. So I'm going to get it. I'll get it up here. And then I'll go over to it. It says the Book of Creation extracts from the Great Book of the Sons of Fire. So this is like, you could say, where the Judean fantasy from its get-go is all based on older stuff, which were being formulated so that they could create the Second Temple, under the auspices of the Babylonian captivity and under the priesthood of Levi. That's the Judean session. It's not the Israelites. They didn't take their gnosis from the Levi clan. So it says, chapter 1, creation. Mortal knowledge is circumscribed by mortal ignorance, and mortal comprehension is circumscribed by spiritual reality. It is unwise for mortal men to attempt the understanding of that which is beyond his conception, for there lies the road to disbelief and madness. Yet man is man, and ever fated to reach out beyond himself, striving to attain things which always just elude his grasp. So in this frustration, he replaces the dimly seen incomprehensible with things within his understanding. If these things but poorly reflect reality, then it is not a reflection of reality. It's distorted though it may be, of a greater value than no reflection at all. So he's basically saying, though you have to be careful when you're trying to expand your own boundaries, it's a natural striving that we have. So we can't, we're not meant to let it go, but we have to be very careful. And that even just trying, even if it's, it doesn't matter, it's still of greater value than not actually trying. It says, there are no true beginnings on earth, for here is all effect. Yeah? The ultimate cause being elsewhere. So that's where we're sourced. I mean, the earth is bigger than just this physical, isn't it? This is Middle Earth. There's the heavens, and then there's the underworld. That's what is being classed as the earth when you're looking at these creation stuff, or the older one. Not, like I said, I think that you can only go with chapter 1 in Genesis. The rest of it is the Lord's stuff, the trap, the concoction that'll pull you into falsehood, or the Lucifer. So you could say it's the Noah's codes that he pasted back into the post-flood era. So he took the old codes from the old world and then pasted them through his own efforts into this new and dragged some of the old, so it's a bit of a mimic, but it sets itself off and against what carried through as a natural progression after the flood, which is what so the antagonist then is the old trying to intersect and push its nose back in so that it keeps control. So you could say Noah's Lucifer, yeah? And the false text is the fact that these codes that he's copied from the previous age and reinserted back into the post-flood age is what's causing the problems, because it's moving against the flow of creation as a natural thing. Here we go. For who among men can say which came first, the seed or the plant? Yet in truth it is neither. For something neither seed nor plant proceedeth both, and that thing was also preceded by something else. Always there are ancestors back to the beginning, and back beyond to there is only God. This then is how these things we're told in the great book of the Sons of Fire. Now, as I understand it, the white race, and this comes from the Native American, see, each race has its own special truth, and when they divided off to the four corners of the earth, they were supposed to, when they came back, each had something to teach the other. Yeah, so they were each given a particular, so the water, the air, the fire, etc., and that knowledge was supposed to be held by them. When we all came back together again, share that knowledge and become that one again, as it were. Of course, that hasn't happened, has it? Everybody hates everybody else and everybody's tapped. So that's basically... So the white race were given... We hold fire. That is our job. That's our role. So we are the holders of the fire. So this is how I'm understanding this kind of stuff. It says, before the beginning there was only one consciousness, that of the eternal one, whose nature cannot be expressed in words. It was the one soul spirit, the self-generator which cannot diminish. The unknown, unknowable, one brooding solitary in profound, pregnant silence. The name which is uttered cannot be that of this great being who remains nameless, is the beginning and the end, beyond time, beyond the reach of mortals, and we in our simplicity call it God. He who preceded all existed alone in his strange abode of uncreated light. Well, light is just sound. Yeah, that's what it is, the word. The source of everything in this holographic image is sound. It's a it's a vibration. And light is just a form of that vibration. Which remains ever inextinguishable, and no understandable eye can ever behold it. The pulsating draughts of the eternal life, light in his keeping, were not yet loosed. He knew himself alone, he was uncontrasted, unable to manifest in nothingness, for all within his being was unexpressed potential. The great circles of eternity were yet to be spun out, to be thrown forth as the endless ages of existence in substance. They were to begin with God and return to him completed in infinite variety and expression. That sounds to me like he's talking about a magnetic field. So, until the magnetic field was actually created, it couldn't express itself in an outward manner. If you get what I'm saying. That's how I understand that passage. Doesn't mean it's fact, but this is just how my mind works. Earth was not yet in existence. There were no winds with the sky above them, and high mountains were not raised, nor was there a great river in its place. All was formless, without movement, calm, silent, void, and dark. No name had been named, and no destinies foreshadowed. Eternal rest is intolerable, and unmanifested potential is frustration. Into the solitude of timelessness can divine loneliness, and from this arose the desire to create, that he might know and express himself, and this generated the love of God. He took thought and brought into being with himself the universal womb of creation, containing the everlasting essence of slumbering spirit. The essence was quickened by a ripple from the mind of God, and a created thought was projected. This generated power which produced light, and this formed a substance like unto a mist of invisible dust. So then power, because it has to come before light, must then be describing sound, mustn't it? So this generated sound which produced light. So that's how I'd take that, because then that vibration is the power, isn't it? So as well, anyway, I'm going off. And this formed a substance like unto a mist of invisible dust. It divided into two forms of energy through being impregnated with the Spirit of God, and quickening the chaos of the void within the universal womb, became spun out into whirlpools of substance. From this activity, as sparks from a fire, came an infinite variety of spirit minds, each having creative powers within itself. Again, that's describing a magnetic field, a magnetic system, in my opinion. This is why it's always sparks going outwards, but then coming back to it, but not yet, does it? Not until it shuts itself off. Interesting. The activating word was spoken. It echoes, vibrates still, and there was the stirring movement which caused instability. A command was given, and this became the everlasting law. Henceforth, activity was controlled in harmonious rhythm, and the initial inertia was overcome. So the inertia would be in the centre of the magnetic field, wouldn't it? It's sort of the tube that goes down that the magnetic field. Do you get what I'm saying here? But yet you wouldn't normally translate this kind of data this way, most people, because that's not what you've been trained to do. Do you know what I mean? Henceforth, activity was controlled in harmonious rhythm, and the initial inertia was overcome. So once that's overcome, then it can spread out into and create its magnetic field. Yeah. The law divided the materializing chaos from God and then established the boundaries of the eternal spheres. Time no longer slept on the bosom of God, for now there was change where before all had been unchanging. And change is time. Now within the universe womb was heat, substance and life, and encompassing it was the word, which is the law. So that's the sound, the specific frequency of the word that set all this off is fixed. It is the law. Yeah? That's again how I'd understand that. Thus the universe came into being as a condensation of God's thought. So the thought is the essence of the sound, the word. No, let's not get too bogged down in that, because that's... Anyway. Sorry. And as it did so, it obscured him from all enclosed within. Is solidifying creation. Henceforth, God was hidden. So you could consider the sort of like the empty space in the middle of the magnet as like empty. Is that the source of it? But what started that off? There we go. Your own arse then, don't you? Hence, we've done that. Yeah, we've done that. Hang on. Yeah. The command was given, let the smallest of things form the greatest, and that which lives but a flash form everlastingness. Thus the universe came into being as a condensation of God's thought, and as it did so, it obscured him from all enclosed within, is solidifying creation. So when it came to being, you straight away then you can't see past a certain point. So that's our source, isn't it? That's where we're coming from before we come into this, whatever it is. Hologram, I've always thought. Especially when you get into your blood. You break down your blood to the smallest part, and it's a complete hologram of your body, your entire body. So that's why you don't really want to be having other people's arms on. You know what I mean? And legs and stuff like that, because not good, is it? I don't think. Thus the universe, yeah, I've done that. Henceforth God was hidden, for he has always remained dimly reflected in his creation. He became veiled from all that came forth from him. Creation does not explain itself. Under the law, it cannot do so. So the laws that we know that govern this place doesn't explain outside. Yeah, it's completely different things. Now, Jason suggests it's a copy of the original. Makes sense. If you're going to create an hologram, you would base it basically on what you know, wouldn't you? So that's an interesting one. And then you get into the avatar side of things. So from where we're coming from, we're actually sort of impregnating ourselves into an avatar that has to grow as an infant up to adulthood, yeah, and grown up stuff. And it makes sense. And when we're in here, we can't. Unless you can do it in lucid dreaming sometimes. You can do it with mind-altering hallucinogens, you know. So there are, and that's as old as time. That's nothing new. So there's many ways that you can achieve that sort of fleeting glimpses. You know what I'm saying? That's the shamanic path, isn't it, basically? In a nutshell. So that's how I'd understand that. He became veiled from all that came forth. Creation does not explain itself. Under the law, it cannot do so. Its secrets have to be unravelled by the created. So we lose contact with it, but we can find it. We can re-find it. So I would represent that as you pull the sword from the stone is basically symbolic that your spiritual, who you are, is now running the show in your avatar. You're not subject to all the genetic impulses, the desires, etc. Doesn't mean to say you're not operating, but you're not letting anything get the better of you. You're becoming the rider of your horse, as the tarot would depict. your avatar, your spirit, you're the rider then. Yeah, so you're using all the impulses and the codes and the qualities of your genetics, but they're not your master. You know what I'm saying? So it just makes so much sense, this. But I know it's a different way of it being given to us, but I think it's a lot better than the sort of context in which biblical language makes it difficult, really, to grasp it. So then you have to believe the fable that they tell you. So, you know, because they don't let you read it, do they? They'll let you read it, but they're telling you what it means all the time. Everything. They've already got it back. No. All that means this. And you take it on. And then you're not looking at it any other way. And so I do understand that people who have been brought up with religion forced down their neck are at serious disadvantage in trying to break free of this mimic coding that's busy trying to take over the entire show. Eternal rest is into... Oh no, I've done that. So all things are by nature finite. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So that's this thing here that we're in now as a middle, a beginning, and an end. An unaccomplishable purpose would be eternal frustration, and therefore the universe being created purposefully, it must have an objective. If it intended without anything else following, then the God existing must slumber indifferent to all its activities. But he has made it a living work of greatness operating under the changeless law. So this is the problem. Things get problematic down here when we forget what the law is. So the so-called ruling guy, elite guy, said divine law. Well, you could take that as the vine law. So the vine being the law of the bloodlines. That doesn't necessarily mean it's heavenly law, does it? It's divine, the vines law, which could very well, if you take on their own symbolism, mean. He's pretty much said to you, this is our lines law, suck on it, maybe, who knows. But he did come out with some bloody good stuff, so you can't take that away from him. But, they don't give it all easy, this stuff, because you've got to wrap your mind around it to understand it, because it says you can. It's to be unravelled by the created. But he had made it a living work of greatness operating under the changeless law. The creating word had been spoken. Now there was another command, and the power going forth smote the sun, so its face was lit. And it shone with a great radiance, pouring warmth and light upon its sister, earth. Henceforth she would live within the protection of her brother's household. So the earth is... okay. Rejoicing in his benevolence and strength. So the sun, if you take that passage, is the protector of its sister, the earth. So they're blocking out the sun, calling it, sun, sea, sun, rain, change. You know what I'm saying? So they're actually now, you can see that now as a mechanic. We take this as the older versions of creation that everything else is based on badly. It's telling you that the earth is under the protection of the sun by being under its great radiance, warm and light. And what are they doing? They're blocking it. Yeah? So they're moving against creation. That's who these people are. This military-industrial complex, this imperial, this banking, this political, corporate, secret society. This is what you're in. Whether you know it or not, that is what you are promoting. And this is what they're doing, going directly against the creation as commanded from the word, the original word. So they're changing the word, the frequency. What's all this stuff they're putting up everywhere? France has banned these towers in an area because it giving cows cancer. And that's only recently. So, you know what I'm saying? They get all our militaries out. What are they going to do with this stuff? What are they actually going to do with it, setting this stuff up? And more importantly, what effect does it have on those that have actually took the juice? You know what I'm saying? Is it far worse? Now, this could be coincidence, but we've spoke about certain towers that they have in my town. Now, last week, there were 3 traffic incidents on that road, which is unusual. So I was wondering how they turned the tower on. Also, there's been a couple of the same kind of incidents next to where there's another one. No, I don't know. You know, you can't say it is, you can't say it's not. But if this stuff has the capacity to sort of mess with your brain a bit while you're driving, that could cause some serious problems, especially if you're on the motorway. So just what potential of this technology is it going to give them? You know what I'm saying? And they're already moving us out of the protection of the sun. So whatever they're doing isn't good. It's not good for humanity, let's put it that way. The waters upon the bosom of earth were gathered together and dry land appeared. When the covering of water was rolled back, the body of earth was unstable, damp and yielding. The face of the sun shone down kindly upon his sister, and the dry land of her body became very hard. Humidity and dampness were taken away. So humidity and dampness, now that's your firmament, isn't it? Yeah? So when it's humidity and dampness were taken away, that's out of the atmosphere. So that's when the firmament had disappeared. And we got the sun. So there was a change with that flood. Yeah, so previous to that, it was the firmament about, and then this sun event, and they removed the dampness and the humidity out of the atmosphere. Because, of course, it had all collapsed. If you read the flood stories, it's basically saying that the waters fell from the sky. They're not necessarily talking all about tsunamis. It's about the whole firmament collapsing. And then it was taken out of there, and then the land that were left were dried up. He gave her a garment of fleece and a veil of fine linen, that she might clothe her body with modesty. So that's going to be soil, it's going to be plants, isn't it? It's yeah. So that's interesting as well. From the great womb had sprung the spirit of life, and it was rampant in the heavens. It gazed upon the earth and saw her fairness, and was filled with desire, and came out of the heavenly spaces to possess her. It came not peacefully as a lover, but tempestuously as a ravager. Its breath howled along her corridors and raged among her mountain tops. But it did not discover the dwelling place of her spirit. She had withdrawn as a woman withdraws before force, for modesty must be outraged in submission. Yet she desired its embrace, for among all the radiant company she was honoured. That's interesting. So it could suggest that the life like us, the two-legged, as the Native American sort of theologies speak about, we were classed as pretty naughty. You know, not individual races, but all of us were just completely naughty down here, you know what I'm saying? And the animals stopped communicating with us, didn't they? That's the Native American sorts of stuff. The sun saw her. No, I've done that one. I'm okay. When it was subdued and primal struggle had ceased, it was delivered by the sun to his sister. It was chastened and quietened, and in silence brooded over earth's waters. And she was stirred in response. Mud eggs of life potential were formed in swamps, at the meeting place of land and two waters. The sun gave quickening, heat, and life crawled forth upon the bosom of the earth. The land dust brought forth the male, and the dark water mist the female. So the land dust brought the male, and the darker water mist the female. Right, so that's interesting, because that distinguishes male and female in relation to substance. And it certainly doesn't go with the garbage about Eve being created from a rib of the Adam, does it? You know, can you see how they've totally twisted it? This Noahide cult, many centuries ago, into their own story, and they just robbed older stuff and turned it into bigging them up. And they united and multiplied. So the land dust brought forth the male, and the dark water mist the female, and they united and multiplied. The first brought forth the second, and the two produced the third. Earth was no longer virgin, and the spirit of life grew old and departed. Right, so that whatever it were that were being a bit naughty, run off. That's alright then. Spirit of life grew old and departed. What does that mean? I don't get that. That needs a bit more... Earth was left garbed in the matron's mantle of green herbage covered the face of the land. The waters brought forth fishes and creatures which move about and twist themselves and wriggle in the waters. The serpents and the beasts of terrible aspect were of yore, and reptiles which creep and crawl. There were tall walking things and dragons in hideous form, clothed in terror, whose great bones may still be seen. So we got dragons there. Then came, well, there must be something with dragon. There's got to be more to the dragon story than we've obviously been force-fed by far, because it's just ancient language. Then came forth from the womb of the earth all the beasts of the field and forest, all the creatures of creation having blood in their bodies, and it was complete. Beasts roamed the dry land, and the fishes swarm in the seas. There were birds in the skies, and worms within the soil. There were great land masses and high mountains, wide barren places and heaving waters. Fertile greenness covered the land, and abundant life swarmed in the seas, for now earth throbbed with the energy of life. Metals lay hidden in her rocks, and precious stones within the soil. Gold and silver were scattered and secreted. There was copper for tools and forests of timber. There were swamps of reeds and stone for every purpose. Everything was prepared, everything was ready, and now earth awaited the coming of man. Oh, so the male and females he's talking about are the animals and the beasts at that point. Now, whether that transfers over to man, I don't know. So I got excited there. Well, I should have carried on reading a bit first. Anyway. So everything was prepared, everything was ready, and now the earth awaited the coming of man. So chapter 2 is the birth of man. I'm just going to have a look at you lot, see if you're bored. How's this going down by with you lot? Okay? Even though all form is created from a magnetic field. Yeah. Sound causes the disturbance in the ether, creating light form. Well, if we go with that, he's pretty much telling you that sound is the cause of everything. The initial cause. Greetings. Inertia is the dialectic. Yep, that's true. Dielectric. If you say a word, you create a toroidal hyperboloid. Yeah, this is why words are so important, and why they used to be a bit quieter back in there. And probably why Scots used to put that bridle over women's faces to shut up when they were gossiping and falling out with neighbours. Which I put on my face ache. I thought it was quite funny. I mean, I do like to put banter between sexes because the relations between the males and the females today is so strained, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, to be honest. You've got to try and get back to some idea of sanity and balance. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. I think it's just all part of coming away from the religious control where it's all about submission and I'm in charge and I'm the boss and I'm a this and I'm a that. You know, like the older religions are really full of that, aren't they? It's all about that. So, you know, the West, the white honkies, and anybody else in the West that's picked this up, they've escaped the clutches and control of religion while they try and find that inner kingdom. But we've been knocked off in all directions by all things that shine and glisten, have we not? The holographic realm is the toroidal hyperboloid. Well, I mean, there's some grammar there to take in for people to grasp that language, you know what I'm saying? I always try and move them kind of concepts into a manner that can be a bit more understood for them not versed in Eastern stuff. But yeah, I know what you're saying. All is one, one is everything. How do you see this playing out, Sean? How does it end? Does it end? Do you know what? It's hard to say, in all truth. Because, I mean, you know, through my years of doing this, before I jumped off, there is a good force in this world, in this place, that, you know, it's looking for people that it can help, you know, encourage, ground what it is they're trying to do, if it's correct, if it's balanced, you know. But most people today just succumb to the darker forces because of the fear that the darker forces have aroused in them, and they just feel they can't do anything. It's out of their hands. They don't have an input. That's religion, because religion is all about you giving up your life essence for this gang cause. And when you do that, obviously the sort of the knock on of that is you lose your own autonomy, and you become basically just a pawn in the moves of whatever system you're tied into, because you've given it your essence, basically. So in a lot of cases, I mean, now this might be a bit controversial, and I don't mean I'm stating this as a fact, but if that's a true mechanic of this place, that you know, if you're lacking in that ability to be autonomous, to have a high moral code, or be aware of your conscience, to the point that you'll take note of it, and you'll sort of plan your life within those acceptable boundaries that your conscience gives you, you become pretty useless. You've gone so far down in the frequency scale. You're not benign. You're damaging. You know, this Phoenix thing, it's coming, what, we're 18 years off. Now, who's to say it doesn't kick in way before the actual bump point, and that this great convincing many people that they have to take these procedures is actually a way of weeding out the people that are not necessary to where this is all going. So, I mean, back in the day, I studied a lot of stuff where you're looking at parallel universes, or probably the better term is timelines. So there's different timelines that you can be on as who you are in this realm. That's why it's the magical realm. So let's say, so deja vu, for instance, I've always looked at that as more than likely something that happens when you've acted in a manner that's changed the path that you were on. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't get deja vu very often. But back in the mystery school times, I used to get it a lot. So you'd have a time where I was probably getting it for over a few weeks. And I thought to myself, is it telling me that what I've just done in the last, maybe 6 months, has been enough to change the path that it were going, the timeline that I were on? You get what I'm saying? So I don't know whether that's how I've always looked at deja vu from my own perspective, and now I've used it to help me work out where I am on this, in the labyrinth, as it were. But I don't know, where is it going to go? I think everybody's going to go down the timeline that they're on. So if you're entering other nations because you've been told that you can enslave all the women and chop all the arms and legs off the males because God said, then you're probably going to meet the rightful reaction to that kind of ludicrous attitude. Do you know what I'm saying? If you believe that Armageddon's coming, then you'll probably see that timeline. Do you know what I'm saying? So whatever it is is within you, and then you're expressing out in your magnetic field, is creating your reality, is creating your timeline. That's the frequency that you're operational within, and it has its own song, to put it. I can't really think of a better. So you look at it like as a song. What song are you singing? So first, what song are you pulling in and then expressing? Do you know what I'm saying? Again, that is, you are what you eat, you are what you take inside of yourself. You know, in all aspects, in all ways. It's, you know, if you're on one side, then you're opposed to another. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, I've done this for a long time, where I was fixed solidly on one side, because I were still a bit thick, but I weren't thick. You know what I'm doing? I were still doing my thing, but at this point now I can look back and say, yeah, but you were a fucking halfway. You know, you were dumb as fuck. Which I wasn't, but I was doing the best I could. And it has effects. But I mean, today now I think, yeah, I'm not doing too bad again. Seems to be getting back on track and levelling out and getting me mojo back slowly. I don't mean on live streaming, I'm just meaning in how I'm seeing where we are. So I would say, if you're asking me personally how I'm seeing this play out, it's all about focusing on self and where you're at. What timeline are you actually living, as opposed to what timeline would you like to be on? You know, so what kind of behaviours, what kind of mind patterns are you thinking and pulling in and then formulating, expanding, and then they're manifesting? Until you start looking at your own play in this game like that, you're just heading down that path. And there's copious of examples of where them paths lead. You know what I'm saying? That is this world. It's books, it's song, it's film, it's art, it's in everything. You know, cautionary tales all the time. You do this, that, you do that. So for me, it's about, if you can keep control of yourself, i.e., you can experience all these things. You can go out, you can get pissed if you want, you can enjoy the ladies, you can enjoy the meal, you can do as you please, as long as it's not trapping you. For me, and this is why I infuriate so many people around me that I've known in my life, it's that the minute something has become a governing principle in my own decision making, then it's a problem. Yeah, this is why I'm not married. You know what I'm saying? It's just one of them things. If something else is sort of editing or affecting what it is I'm trying to do at any time, then I see it as okay, we need to get that in order. I can't be letting that take me over. I can't, blah, blah, blah. And that's how I look at it. It doesn't mean I say I can't get involved with folk, activities and things. I can, as long as I don't let it start to determine my path. And that's, again, a good way to look at this now, to try and get yourself in a better place. But we don't know what's going on. We know, I think what we're seeing is how the elite see it, and they're just recouping now everything, so that when this event finishes its shindig, they can come back and there's a lot less people for them to manage and put back into the order, a bit like they did with the Tower of Babel story, you know, where the Lord said, hang on a minute, there's no end to everything, what these guys can accomplish. We must break them up, give them 72 languages. That weren't the creation. That weren't the initial thing. That was this antagonist system that is all about keeping its lines in control. And to do that, it has to confuse and confound all others. Yeah. So I don't know. I used to get deja vu an awful lot. Yeah, I think it's, me personally, I'd say you're only going to get that if you're in an intense part of your life, and where decisions you're making in them moments, you're either going to carry on the timeline, on the roundabout, the magic roundabout, or you're going to change something. You're going to react in a different way. You're going to behave in a different way. Do you know what I'm saying? You're going to block the reaction to no. You're off that path. The deja vu, I think, is a method of showing you. Here you go. This is that point now where you've changed. You've changed something. So that's how I see it. So you would only, if you were getting it all the time, you could consider yourself a bit of an athlete on guiding your own path, pretty much. So you don't want to be getting it too much, but if you do get it, you need to consider that as a potential with it. and stay focused to whatever you're doing always. You've got to do. Or you won't achieve anything. You'll get lazy and I can't be asked to do that. It's fake, it's all fake. What's all fake, Neon? What do you think is all fake? Destiny, fate and karma. That's you, mate. Destiny, fate and karma. Definitely. But the thing is, right, so the Native Americans, back to them again. What they used to preach, what I still do probably, is that we're down here and there's dreams everywhere that want to ground and come into this holographic world, as it were. And they have to choose somebody to do that, or more than one. So that could be classed as a destiny. So they're everywhere. But it's what you're choosing. I will accept that there have been things that I know that I've had to experience, whether I liked it or not. You could call them pre-prepared destinies, points at which you had to go through to experience one way or another, whether it's to cleanse karma, as you put there, you know. But yeah, deja vu, destiny's change. Yeah, you've stepped on a different timeline. You've improved, or you've made worse, or whatever. To be fair, if I'm truth, when I used to analyse that, I would say the deja vu only ever seemed to come to me. And then afterwards you can see that it was beneficial. So maybe deja vu doesn't come if you're making things worse. But it definitely, for me, were a point of reference in the labyrinth as to when I were on the right track, basically. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's how I used to use it. Because when you're in the labyrinth, you have to pick out your points of reference yourself. Most people's had them points of reference programmed in them from being kids. And that's it. You don't have any of your own. But in the labyrinth, if you want to move like Theseus, because there's nobody leaving strings, you've got to formulate your own points of reference so that you then can communicate with your inner self as to whether you're going that way or you're going that way. You know, whatever you're doing. But you want to be going that way, don't you? Doesn't mean you can't turn that way, but you're still going that way. As long as you're going forward, in my opinion. Unless it's time for rest and contemplation, which is as important as the action. Destiny has changed. Yeah, I'll go with that, Ray, definitely. I'd go with that. Right, I've chin-wagged a bit there. I'll get back to this. So this is chapter 2, the birth of man. It says, the love of God penetrated the third veil and became the seed of souls within the soul's sea. The body of man God made of water and things of the earth, breathing into him the spirit of life, that he might live. But man, when young, lived only to eat and drink and to fornicate. Not much has changed then. For being conscious only of the earth, he knew only earthly things and earthly ways. Now the Spirit of God moved over the face of the earth, but was not of the earth. It held all things and was in all things, but on earth could not be apart from anything. Without substance it was awake, but not entering substance it slept. So, like we've just been saying, the dream, they have to enter some substance in order to ground it and make it manifest. So I think that's what he's saying there, that it had to be given substance. So it's considered that which was told by the servants of Eben, a heaven man who once wandered the earth. He had no earthly substance and could not grasp its fruits, for he had no hands. He could not drink its waters, for he had no mouth. Nor could he feel the cool winds upon his skin. They tell how the 8th tribe, Selok, led by Heaven Man, perished by flames before the valley of Lod. Only one she-ape reaching the cave heights above. When Heaven Man was reborn of the she-ape in the cavern of war, could he taste the fruits of the earth and drink of her waters? So the Heaven Man, that's got to be an entity from, so there's heaven, middle earth, underworld, yeah? So we're looking at this spirit from the heavenly realm had to be put inside this first job of a creature to give it some substance outside just the earth. So it was like, and feel the coolness of her winds. Did he not find life good? It is not at all tale. It is not all a tale of the courtyard. Man created from earthly substance alone could not know things not of earth, nor could spirit alone subdue him. Had man not been created, who would have known God's wisdom and power? As the spirit fills the body of man, so does God fill his creation. Therefore it was that God saw something had to be which joined earth and spirit, and was both. In his wisdom and by his creative impulse which governs the earth, he prepared a body for man. For the body of man is wholly of earth. Well, it is, isn't it? It's a biological system. And that's what it's made up of. Biology, earthly nature, natural chemistry. That's another thing, just while we're on there. If we look at science, we did one before about mathematics, but what they've done with science is, instead of it being chemistry, physics, biology, geology, astronomy, etc., it's mathematics. Science now is nothing but mathematics. So you're not actually getting any substance to the science going through the Epstein group and the likes, yeah? So mathematics is science under this garbage that they're pissing around. Hence the reason they have to take morality out of it to create these transgingers, you know what I mean? They've took him out at swimming, haven't they? Thank goodness. And I hope the guy, that thing that did it, gets it took off it. Therefore, it was that God saw something had to be which joined earth and spirit, and was both. So he wants to get the spirit into this earthly body that he's created. In his wisdom and by the creative impulse which governs the earth, he prepared a body for man. For the body of man is wholly of earth. Behold, the great day came when the spirit, which is God, was joined with the beast, which is earth. Then earth writhed in the labour of travail. Her mountains rocked back and forth, and her seas heaved up and down. Earth groaned in her lands and shrieked in her winds. She cried in the rivers and wept in her storms. So that's a major catastrophe, isn't it? That's what if that's not a description of some kind of like great flood event or a phoenix event, I don't know what else, yeah? And that was the putting in of the spirit. So these things might look terrible to us down here going, but in fact, they're obviously a great cleansing and a transformation time, isn't it? So again, back to where people probably go on their own timelines, because that's where you are. That's what you've achieved in all your lifetimes, right up to this one. And, you know, if you're still just earth fixed, you're just lowly, yeah, you know what I'm saying? You're going to take the juice. You're going to go and run off and fight this war for these arseholes down at Chalker, Westminster, you know, and in the White House, the Kremlin, and every other hoity-toity governmental building that there is on the planet. So, let's have a look. So man was born of upheaval and strife. He came wretchedly and tumultuously, the offspring of a distraught earth. So we're damaged because all was in discord. Snow fell in the hot wastelands. Ice covered the fertile plains. The forest became seas. Where once it was hot, now it was cold. And where no rain had fallen, now there were floods. So man came forth, man the child of calamity, man the inheritor of creative struggle, man the battleground of extremes. Do you get that? As I've said before, the battle is inside of us as to which, and back to Native Americans, dark wolf, light wolf, what are you choosing? That's the battleground. It's the kingdom within. You're all out there taking all your input and everything from out there external. You're not in the battle. You're not playing the game you're here for as a creative struggle. Yeah? Whatever it is that it's about, it's obviously got a reason. We forget that down here, but you can work it out. So if you've jumped off or you're on the merry-go-round going absolutely nowhere, you've pulled out of the battleground of extremes. You're not allowing yourself to... You're on the fence, and that's garbage. You can't be on the fence. You've got to be one at t'other to be in the game. You know what I mean? Earth nurtured man with cautious affection, weaning him in the recesses of her body. So that's underground, innit? So when all this nonsense was going on, boom, this is your underground stories, you know, and it's everywhere, in everything, how they went underground. This is why the elites build all the underground bases. You know what I'm saying? We pay for it. It's what it's all about. Because for them, the only important thing, as I said at the beginning, is 138 years. And it affects every generation that is of the elite, because they have to. This is probably why they choose the one out of these rich families to take on the mantle. Why you've got the Committee of 300. You know, the most powerful of each family, of the most powerful families from each nation, is in this committee. That's their interest, is to make sure that when these catastrophes have done, they're coming back and taking full control. Then when he was grown sufficiently to be lifted, so he walked in the uprightness of God, she took him and raised him above all other creatures. She led him even into the presence of God, and she laid him on his great altar. Okay. A man imperfect of earthly limitations, a thing unfinished, ungainly and unlearned, but proudly was he presented to earth's creator. Not her firstborn was man, the son of earth, the grandchild of God, man the heir of tribulation and the pupil of affliction. God saw man the offering of earth to her Lord, unconscious on the high altar, a sacrifice to him and a dedication to the spirit of faith. Of fate. Then from out of the unfathomable heights and from behind the impenetrable veil, God came down above the altar and breathed into man the breath of eternal life. Into his sleeping body God implanted a fragment of himself, the seed of a soul and the spark of divinity. A man the mortal became man the heir of God and the inheritor of immortality. Henceforth he would have dominion over God's earthly estate. But he also had to unravel the circles of eternity, and his destiny was to be an everlasting seeking and striving. So the destiny of man is to be everlastingly seeking and striving. So they've got your old cabbage.settee now, don't want to go out wear your pyjamas. And you think that's what it's about. You retire, oh, well, we're going to retire, we're 50. And we're going to do fuck all, but I'm going holiday twice a year. And live up there after getting bored shitless doing our garden and watching telly. And going to Waitrose every week. You know why it's so boring? And it's just because that's not what you're meant to be doing. It's not what you're meant to be doing. Man slept, but God opened the great eye within him. The great eye. Yeah, the pineal gland. And man saw a vision of unsurpassed glory. He heard the voice of God saying, O man, in your hand is now placed the tablet of your inheritance, and my seal is upon it. Know that all you desire within your heart may be yours. But first it is necessary that you be taught its value. Behold, the earth is filled with things of usefulness. They are prepared to your hand for a purpose. But the task is upon you to seek them out and learn their use. This is the tuition for the management of your inheritance. So when you get into the idea that there's elites and that there are mystery schools, it has to be so. It has to be so, yeah, because we're under tuition, yeah. And depending on how we're handling all this seeking and striving, this catastrophe, this affliction, is moving you onto the frequency that you're going to be on, whether it's for ill or nay. It's you are doing it. You are the creative force here. Yeah, you've got the biological body to to tromp on the earth and do all the earthly things, but you've had bestowed upon you that spiritual spark, so you know there's something greater. Yeah? What you know to be good, seek for, and it shall be found. You may plumb the seas and pluck the stars. You may live in everlasting glory and savour eternal delights. Above and below, and all about, there is nothing beyond your reach. All, with one exception, is yours to attain. Then God laid his hand upon man, saying, Now you are even as I, except you sleep. They are enclosed in matter, in the kingdom of illusion, while I dwell here in the freedom of reality and truth. It is not for me to come down to you, but for you to reach out to me. Yeah? Man then saw a vision of glory encompassing even the spheres of splendour. Unbounded wisdom filled his heart, and he beheld beauty in perfection. The ultimate of truth and justice were unveiled before him. He became one with the profound peace of eternity and knew the joys of unceasing gladness. The eternal ages of time unrolled as a scroll before his eyes. Excuse me. And he saw written thereon all that was to become and occur. The great vaults of heaven were opened up to him, and he saw the everlasting fires and unconsumable powers that strove therein. He felt within himself the stirring of inexpressible love, and unlimited designs of grandeur filled his thoughts. There's your, see, the origin of the appetite. There you go. See, it's not a bad thing in and of itself. But if you're misusing what's being given to you, which is what's happening, because they're all shitting themselves and they just want to make sure that they survive because they're terrified and they don't understand this side of the creation. They're fixed to the earth, aren't they? They can only do earthly things. Where am I now? The ultimate of truth and justice were unveiled before him. He became one with the profound peace of eternity, unceasing gladness. The eternal ages of time unrolled as a scroll before his eyes, and he saw written thereon all that was to occur. The great vaults of heaven were opened up to him, and he saw the everlasting fires and unconsumable powers that strove therein. He felt within himself the stirring of inexpressible love, and unlimited designs of grandeur filled his thoughts. I've done that. His spirit ranged unhampered through all the spheres of existence. He was then and even as God himself, and he knew the secret of the 7 spheres within the 3 spheres. It sounds like he's talking about Enoch here. Then God lifted his hand from man, and man was alone. The great vision departed, and he awoke, only a dim and elusive recollection. No more than a shadow of a dream remained. So, I mean, this is a serious reset, innit? You know what I'm saying? But deep within the sleeping soul, there was a spark of remembrance, and it generated within man a restless longing for he knew not what. Henceforth, man was destined to wander discontented, seeking something he felt he knew, but could not see. Something which continually eluded him, perpetually goaded him, and forever tantalised him. Deep within himself, man knew something greater than himself was always within him and part of him, spurring him on to greater deeds, greater thoughts, greater aspirations. It was something out beyond himself, scarcely realised and never found. Something which told him that the radiance seen on the horizon but dimly reflected the hidden glory beyond it. Man awoke, the revelation and vision gone. Only the grim reality of earth's untamed vastness surrounded him. But when he arose and stepped down onto the bosom of his Mother Earth, he was undaunted by the great powers that beset him, or by the magnitude of the task ahead. Within his heart he knew destiny lay beyond the squalor of his environment. He stepped out nobly, gladly accepting the challenge. He was now a new man. He was different. He looked above and saw glory in the heavens. He saw beauty about him, and he knew goodness and things not of the earth. The vision of eternal values arose before his inner eye. His spirit was responding to its environment. Man was now man, truly man. The nature of man on earth was formed after the nature of things in heaven, and man had all things contained as potential within himself, except divine life. But he was as yet untrained, undisciplined child, still nurtured simply upon the comforting bosom of earth. Man grew in stature, but earth was not indulgent, for she disciplined him firmly. She was ever strict and unyielding, chastising him often with blasts of displeasure. It was indeed the upbringing of one destined for greatness. He was made to suffer cold, and he might learn to clothe himself, sent into the barren places that his limbs should be strengthened, and into the forest that his eyes should become keen, and his heart strong. He was perplexed with difficult problems, and set the task of unravelling the illusions of nature. He was beset with hardships every description. He was tested with frustrations and tempted with allurements. Never did earth relax the vigilance of her supervision. Now that's the mystery school for sure, but then that's everybody's life as well. You know, it's just frustration after test. It's just garbage, but you've got to keep going because you're bringing that spirit through that doesn't give a shit about all that stuff. It doesn't care one iota about that nonsense. The child was raised sternly, for he needed the fortitude, courage and cunning of a man to fit him for the task ahead. He grew wily and weary in the hunt. He became adaptable, able to cope with the untoward happening. Overcoming the bewilderments of early days, he found explanations for the perplexities of his surroundings. Yet the struggle for knowledge, the need for adaptation and the effort to survive were never relaxed. The earth child was well trained and disciplined, and he never unduly mollycoddled. He cried for bread and went hungry. He shivered and was cast out. He was sick and driven into the forest. Weary, he was lashed with storms. Thirsty, he found the waters dried up. When weak, his burden was increased, and in the midst of rejoicing, he was struck down with sorrows. In moments of weakness, he cried enough and doubted his destiny, but always something fortified and encouraged him. The earthling never fortified his godlikeness. For man was man, he was not coward, nor his spirit broken. A wise God knew his limitations. As it is written in the wisdom of men, over chastisement is as bad as no chastisement at all. But man was rarely chastised. He was tried, tested, and challenged. He was led, prodded, and urged, yet nothing was done unnecessarily. God, this is my frigging life, this. The seeming imperfections of earth, the hazards, the inequalities of life, the cruelty, yeah? But you keep going. Where is there a wiser father than the Spirit of God, or a better mother than earth? What man is now, he owes to these. May he learn to be duly grateful. Above all, let him never forget the lessons learned in his upbringing. So you could work that as all your past lives since you jumped into this shindig. You know, it's where are you at? Are you at that point yet, or have you not got to that point yet? You know. Now we'll not do any more of this because it's an interesting thing, and it gives you just a different look at the older creation stories about what this place is about. If you don't get the sustenance you should, which you won't, from the Judah's version or the Old Testament. And the next chapter is the destruction and recreation. So I thought it's good stuff. I don't know whether your board's topless, but it is good stuff. And if you get it in your head just to be aware of it, it does change the way you look at things. What time are we on? My God, 1.5 hours. All right, so it's me. Where are we? Two cats passing, glitching in the matrix. Debbie, please watch your language. She's being naughty. Deborah, the dreamer of dreams. Yeah, exactly. That's the Native American. They say that the dreams exist and they're looking for somebody to ground the dream. The dream will dream through you. So book writers, people that write excellent books and it comes out of nowhere. Musicians that are tapping into the ether and pulling in this that's already there. And then the rest of the band, if you've got a proper good band together, it only takes one of you to pick it up. Doesn't matter who it is. And as soon as the rest of you are on it, there you go. You're channeling instantly something that already exists in the ether, and you're grounding it and giving it form. You know, that's what that kind of stuff's talking about, you know. I had runestones read for me today. We also spoke of time as a concept. It's a measure. It's a measure of the movements of the bigger bodies in this hologram. That's why outside it, the source, there's no relevance to it whatsoever. But here, it's all turning, in it. It's all moving. I do runes myself. I do. Although I stopped doing them a long time ago because they weren't telling me what I wanted to hear. How ridiculous is that? No, if you want bang in your face, don't fuck about. There it is. What's around you in your magnetic field. Learn to do the runes. If you're scared shitless of doing that because they don't mess about, they'll give it you exactly as it is. Don't touch them because they're not something to mess with. But they're something to not take lightly. Let me say, at your own risk, you do. But I mean, I learned all that stuff years ago. Terror, palm reading, everything. I did all that stuff. And I'm better for it, I'm glad I did it. The only one I didn't complete, well, you can never complete it, but the only one I really didn't go to the end of it was the I Ching. Most of the other traditions I've ventured into and I've used one way or another. Looking after each other. Well, the key to it all is treat others as you expect to be treated yourself, because you will betray in the same manner as you're putting out. And you might not be aware that you're doing that. You know what I mean? That's where it's the training the subconscious. Because that's what's doing it. That's what's been programmed to react in a certain way, and off it goes. So the journey is about cleansing yourself so that what you're putting out is what's coming back to you. And if what you're putting out is good, what's coming back to you? You know what I'm saying? If you're putting out garbage, anger, all that kind of stuff, you're going to get it back because they're scared. It doesn't work. You can't. That's the whole ethos of the Old Testament for me. If you want evidence that if you don't behave in that manner, that's what happens. Yeah? Insanity. What does that mean? I have £10. Thank you. Is that a donation? I didn't know I had that. That's a thank you very much. That's a first. I didn't know that worked. Oh, cheers. So do you know what I'm saying about that? It's all in us. And if you're taking your points of reference from somebody else's idea, gang, group, you can't pray for one thing when your body's fixed to another. Cleanse yourself, raise your frequencies, and that's the frequency you'll be in. Them are the people you'll be around. Do you know what I mean? Them are the kind of people that want to know you. Not the people you don't really want to be knowing because they're just not. They're just not full shilling. They're not balanced. They're all over the shop. Yeah, exactly. Netflix and middle. The kingdom is... Yeah, well, again, we've talked about this before. I learned to my cost many, many years ago, as a kid actually, that the minute I stopped going with my own feeling, well, that was it. All hell broke loose. That is the kingdom. It's you. Your impulses, not that's coming from an outside source. Outside sources can encourage you. They can give you data. They can give you knowledge. But ultimately, until you've took it on and become it, it's just a thought form. It's just it's that kind of thing. Use the force. Use the force. Well, it's the inner force, isn't it? The kingdom of God is within. The Lord, this Lord fella, no. He's not coming from within. He's all out there. Jingly jangly. But that's not to say you can't drive fast cars. You can't like fast cars. You can't aim to get a nice house. You can. You can't play out and, be a bit of a naughty boy and look for girls. And you can. You can do all these things. But as long as it's not a nasty thing. It's not a twisted thing, you know? Like, I was thinking this the other day as well. Some of the best nights of passion I've ever had in my days, and believe you me, when I were younger, I got around. The ones that were the best, that meaningful even at this age, were the ones that weren't created through any bullshit whatsoever. So you weren't hunting a girl down and she was hunting you down. You were trying to impress her, you were trying to do this, you were doing all that. For some reason, they're okay, but it's not until them spontaneous things happen that it's the best sex you can ever have in your life, because there's no lie in that, because it's an instant chemical bang. There's no. So I was thinking about that today. Don't ask me why. I was just thinking it, and I thought, well, I'll gob that off tonight. So I don't know. I don't know whether that is potentially correct. It's because there's absolutely no deception in the act. It's absolute pure attraction, chemistry, bump. And them are the ones that I remember the most with a smile. And there were no after neither. No eye on you and I'm going to tell your brother and dad and he's going to kick your dad's head in. And none of that. It's just that kind of... So that's pure, I'd say. I'd say that's like a pure thing. And it wouldn't just work for sex. It works with everything, doesn't it? A business do. If it comes together, bang, you're on. It's pure. There's no skullduggery, deception, movements or anything. It's poof. Pure in its essence. Your mind might rip it to bits after. But, you know, that's the force, man. That's the force. Did you speak one time about unblocking ley lines, Sean? Yeah. I was a member of the ley hunters way back. Amazing people, completely nutty as fruit bats. You know, honestly, it were hilarious because they were just completely infantile in their excitement and behaviour. But wow, you know, whoa, what they... And then this one guy in particular who gave me a look one time. I just looked up, and the look, it was such a deep connection with this guy. You wouldn't believe it. You know, he was a lot more than anybody would ever imagine. You know what I'm saying? Like a bit of a Merlin kind of do. It was like that kind of a recognition. We recognised each other. Or more to the point, it was like a father figure recognising a stupid little kid like me. But I weren't a kid, of course. But in respect of the real game, the smile was love, but it was also like, God, you're a fucking lunatic. You're lovely, but you're a lunatic. You know, that kind of fatherly look. They were amazing people. Yeah, of course you can unblock them. You can create new ones. You can do all sorts of things with that stuff. What do you think they're doing when they're building all these cathedrals and churches? They're operating on that ley line, because where they interconnect, you get a vortex. And I did actually go to one down in Roehampton or something like that. I can't remember what it was called. We went down and you actually stood on it and I could feel it, inverse, whooshing up my body. I've been on Silbury Hill. I mean, if I go down to Swindon again, guaranteed, if I see Silbury Hill, I'll be climbing it. I can't help myself. I have to climb on top of it and give it the big... Dudes, the energy shit you come through is unreal. So there's probably a chance I'll be going down there in a bit and I'll be up on top of Silbury Hill. Do you know why? Because I don't care if they say you can't go on it. Who the fucking hell are them? And I'm not listening. And, you know, if they do come and have a share, I'll be on top anyway before they can call my names and that. So, you know what I'm saying? But you will. I'll be on top of Silbury Hill again. So I've told you about it on TV. Were you that asked that question? Did I learn anything from school? Yeah, done right. Everything about myself and meeting that dweller on the threshold. That potentially you can be the greatest good, but you can also be the greatest dark. And you know, a friend of mine, a shaman, said to me once, when I'd made the decision and come out the exit at Moorstone, she said to me, what did she say? Nearly. She said, nearly. So, nearly. It was that, yeah? So, I don't underestimate this reality in relation to what you reap is what you've sown. Make no mistake about it. You're standing pretty now thinking you've done well for life, but you've a long list of damaged folks and events because that's how you got there. Oh, it's coming. It's going to come. I've come across a lady born of the Welsh Hills opening ley lines. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people, but this ley hunting bunch, these guys with the dog's cojones, we were all over up north here, a lot, because there's so much up here. You won't believe it. Whalley is the centre of the Bellinus line. Dunsop Bridge is the centre of Great Britain. Is it Great Britain or England? One or two. There's a lot of stuff up here. You get up Lancaster way up there. I mean, some of the wars, the battles that have been up north that are never reported from like way back Viking, Saxon, Britons time. I mean, the invasions that came here after these resets were just phenomenal. So yeah. Well, they're not sort of secrets that they'll just give openly, these people. You've got to remember, you can only give so much out because the wrong people get hold of this kind of stuff. And it's I mean, if you have an interest in that subject matter, then I'd suggest you join a group. Join a group and go out where they go, and you'll learn. You'll know whether you like it or not. But just get yourself a pair of dowsing rods first. Get a bit of data together as to how you use them and go and see. It works, you know what I'm saying? It really does work. But once you get into that dowsing, water, you can find water, wells, all sorts. There's no end. It's an art that needs to be known. Because they've obviously tried to get rid of it. Top of a Table Mountain, Cape Town, as powerful airlines joining together, showing the wife cried. Yeah, I'm aware of that. I've seen the darkness. Well, haven't we all? And if you haven't, you're gonna. It's all over the shop, isn't it? All around like now. But just get a good torch. Get a good torch. So night goggles if you can. And get started eating carrots. That's all I can say to you. Because it's what's going to be is going to be. And like I said, depending on what timeline you're on, is going to be the timeline you're experiencing. My favourite food. Do you know what? I really can't stand eating. It's the biggest waste of time I've ever known. It's just a waste of time. You have to prep it, cook it, eat it, and wash it up. It's just so shit. It's unbelievable. So, no, I've not heard that Ribchester is, dude. No. I've heard it's Dunsop Bridge for one, and Wall is the centre of the Bellinus line. Ribchester was a Roman fort, wasn't it? I go to Ribchester a lot. Not so much these days, but I like to tromp on river on my own and speak with Minerva. Athena. Yeah, she's very big out there. Out Athena. So what foods do I... Well, I make an absolutely spiffing stir fry. You've never seen that like it. And that is fresh, everything fresh. All the herbs you can imagine. The taste of it is just phenomenal. But I've been so born idle in this last few months, I haven't done much cooking. So I've been eating out. So I eat a lot of fish. I might do a carvery every now and again, but they're not too good for you. Whatever else are being cooked in is not good. I'll always go for the better options of whatever it is I'm scoffing. But I have to confess, I've let the old eating shenanigans go a bit lately. I do need to recoup that and get it back on track because it's very naughty. Fresh milk, yeah, I use that Cravendale. I like that. It's difficult to find milkmen now up here. And everybody nicks it off your doorstep. They nick it. And if they're not nicking it, birds are nicking it. But I grew up on straight from cow. My kids grew up straight from cow. No, nothing, just the cream on it at top were like that. We used to fight. Well, I used to beat them up to make sure I got the cream for my cornflakes. Because I like cornflakes as a kid, but that cream on the cornflakes, and oh man, you've never tasted it like it. But I haven't had cornflakes for donkey's years. I'll eat it for you. Stop smoking. Yeah, the dowsing you'll find all sorts. You can even find gold, and if you know what the feel is of it. Yeah. Stop smoking. I am actually contemplating stopping smoking again. Just due to the fact that how ridiculous my lungs were when I started doing cycling again. But they've popped out again now, so I'm fit again. I'm, well, you know, within reason, but for me age, like nearly 22, I'm not doing bad. Well, you have to be careful nowadays, haven't you? Or have they just scared everybody, claiming that these cows have got big blisters on their udders? I think that's just to scare people, yeah. I did go to Gamecock the other day, and I haven't been for years. I went there for about 7 years every day, apart from Fridays. And I did nearly buy it. I remember that. I had a French company offered me the money for 3%, a bank in France. And then the bastards decided not to sell it. I was gutted. I'd love to live there. I just like the place. The Gamecock as a building is just so beautiful. I love it. I feel so home there. But all the land used to belong to it, but Whitbread were clever. And when they sold it to this lot, they didn't sell up land. But they got all the land in the Gamecock for 600 grand. Yeah? Wow, man. Honestly, that land is absolutely beautiful, and it's a lot of it. And then up back of it, there's like an hill forested, and there's a big building there that's in derelict. That's my clan's sort of. They were big landowners around here back in the day, and that were my clan's pad, big mansion thing. What are we doing here? What have we got about then? GC Math still in milk straight from cow. Yep. Well, you can't beat milk. Milk is excellent. It's got everything in you need it. Just don't. Yeah. Be careful what milk you get. You get a lot from these corner shops. It's powdered milk mixed up. You need to know that. You know what I'm saying? Even the supermarket milks these days is not as good as it used to be, I've noted. So Cravendale all the way for me. Lasts longer and it tastes like milk. But then now and again I will get one that's from a farm somewhere, you know, and I'll try them out. And they are good sometimes, yeah. You're Sabden, aren't you, Andy? Oh yeah, Andy, I forgot about that. You've got some, you and your brother Gear some land. Excellent. I have a mate lives over Sabden. I watched a video recently where this guy laid out the ley lines but put it on a flat map and it wound up equidistant rose design from sacred geometry. Well, if you picture the acupuncture line in your body, the Earth's got the same. And at certain points they get blocked. At certain points to doing satanic ritual sends that energy down that line. You've got Michael lines, you've got Murray lines, so that's male, that's female. All this data is very important for the ley line systems. And they certainly know how to use it here on this earth. All over the world. This is, you know, all your temples, your mosques, your synagogues. But I'm not sure about synagogues. I've never looked into that. But your churches and your cathedrals are all built on ley line crosses. And usually on older temples. There were temples there before. So that technology has been lost to the masses, hasn't it? Like everything else. Milk in a glass bottle like back in the day. Yeah, when we used to recycle everything. Do you remember? There were no plastic. There were nobody fat. Everything got recycled. Everything. We used to make money on bottles. In fact, there were more glass recycled then because you got 10p. You used to go around looking for bottles. 10p a shot. You soon had enough for a packet of fags. You know what I mean? You can't stand the taste of milk. Oh, we got it at milk as well. Well, love broke up into 4 parts, and in fact, we'll do that next week. We'll look at the Greek definition of love. It's broke up into 4 parts, and it's not what people think, you know. So when people go, love, it's like, well, what the fuck does that mean? You want to have sex with everybody? You just want to kiss them? Hug them? Well, I don't want to hug somebody that's coming at me with a big machete. I want to kill them. You know what I'm saying? Is that love? Of course it's love. I'm saying, no, cock, you can't do that. Here, have some of that. You know what I'm saying? Or, poof, have a bit of that, pal. You know, no, I don't, that's love in my eyes. It's saying, no, you're not killing me. I'll put you out of your misery. That's love too. Who's your mate in San Sean? It's called Mick Trelly. I forgot what street's called. Is it Wesley Street? It goes up at top at road, and then it's got that river coming down. It's nice. He's a muso. He's a good producer. He's actually a good musician as well. Good guitarist is the lad. Right, Culpeppers, because I'm rabbiting. So I've got 2 more for you on Culpeppers. Right. Asarabaka. Okay, it says description. And remember, you can get all these on the website on the Culpepper page, because each time we do these every week, I put them on the web page for you to gander. So it says Asarabaka. Description. Asarabaka hath many heads rising from the roots, from whence come many smooth leaves, every one up its own footstalk, which are rounder and bigger than violet leaves, thicker also, and of a dark green shining colour on the upper side, and of a pale yellow green underneath. You know, I need to get pictures of all these herbs, don't they, and attach them to all these as well, for it to be useful information. And of a dark green shining colour on the upper side, and of a pale yellow green underneath, little or nothing dented about the edges, from among which rise small round hollow brown green husks, upon short stalks about an inch long, divided at the brims into 5 divisions, very like the cups or heads of the henbane seed. Oh, I've missed Sir. But that they are smaller, and these are the flowers it carrieth, which are somewhat sweet, being smelled unto, and wherein, when they are ripe, is contained small cornered rough seeds. I love how they written back in there. Very like the kernels or stones of grapes or raisins. The roots are small and whitish, spreading diverse ways on the ground, and increasing into diverse heads, but not running or creeping under the ground, as some other creeping herbs do. They are somewhat sweet in smell, resembling nardus, but more when they are dry than green, and of a sharp but not unpleasant taste. Place, it groweth frequently in gardens. Time. They keep their leaves green till the winter, but shoot forth new in the spring. And when then come forth those flowers which give ripe seed, about midsummer or somewhat after. Government and virtues. It is a plant under the dominion of Mars, and therefore inimical to nature. This herb being drunk not only provoketh vomiting, but purgeth downward, and by urine also, purging both choler and phlegm. If you add to it some spikenard with the whey of goat's milk or honeyed water, it is made more strong, but it purgeth phlegm more manifestly than choler, and therefore doth much help pains in the hips and other parts. So cleaning out the phlegm and all that out of your system can be a problem. Can help your hips. How about that? Being boiled in whey, it wonderfully helpeth the obstruction of the liver and spleen, and is therefore profitable for the dropsy and jaundice. Being steeped in wine and drunk, it helps those continual argers that come by the plenty of stubborn humours. An oil made thereof by setting it in the sun, with some laudanum added to it, provoketh sweating, so a bit of the old heroin there, a bit of the poppy, the laudanum, provoketh sweating, so that's the sweating in it. The ridge of the back being anointed therewith, and thereby driveth away the shaking fits of the auger. So is that epilepsy? It will not abide any long boiling, for it loseth its chief strength, or thereby nor much beating. For the finer powder doth provoke vomits and urine, and the coarser purgeth downwards. The common use thereof, well, that's interesting. So it's saying it purges you by making you pee and wee. That's interesting. So up, puking, downwards. Oh, The roots have also the same virtue, though they do not operate so forcibly, yet they are very effectual against the biting of serpents, and therefore I put as an ingredient both into mithridate and Venice treacle. The leaves and roots being boiled in lye, and the head often washed therein while it's warm, comforteth the head and brain that is ill affected by taking cold, and helpeth the memory. I shall desire ignorant people to forbear the use of the leaves. The roots purge more gently, and may prove beneficial in such as have cancers. Cancers. Or old petrified ulcers, or fistulas upon their bodies. To take a dram of them in powder in a quarter of a pint of white wine in the morning. The truth is, I fancy purging and vomiting medicines as little as any man breathing, for they weaken nature. Nor shall I ever advise them to be used unless upon urgent necessity. If a physician be nature's servant, it is his duty to strengthen his mistress as much as he can, and weaken her as little as may be. Avens, called also clothwort and herb bennet. So this is another one. Description. The ordinary avens have many long, rough, dark green, winged leaves rising from the root, every one made of many leaves set on each side of the middle rib. And largest three whereof grow at the end, and are snipped or dented round about the edges, the other being small pieces, sometimes 2, and sometimes 4, standing on each side of the middle rib. Underneath them, among which do rife up divers rough or hairy stalks about 2 feet high, branching forth with leaves at every point, not so long as those below, but almost as much cut in on the edges, some into 3 parts, some into more. On the tops of the branches stand small pale yellow flowers, consisting of 5 leaves, like the flowers of quinquefoil, but larger, in the middle whereof standeth a small green head, which when the flower is fallen groweth rough and round, being made of many of green purple seeds, like grains, which will stick upon your claws. The root consists of many brownish strings or fibres, or them stickleback plants, smelling somewhat like unto cloves, especially those which grow in the higher, hotter and drier grounds, and in the free and clean air. Well, that's bollocks, isn't it, with chemtrails? Place. They grow wild in many places under edge sides and by the pathways in fields, yet they rather delight to grow in shadowy than funny places. Sunny places. So they prefer the shadow. Time. They flower in May and June for most part, and the seed is ripe in July at the latest. Government and virtues. It is governed by Jupiter, and that gives hope of a wholesome, helpful herb. It is good for the diseases of the chest or breast, for pains and stitches in the sides, and to expel crude and raw humours from the belly and stomach. By the sweet flavour and warming quality, it dissolveth the inward congealed blood, occasioned by falls or bruises and the spitting of blood. If the roots, either green or dried, be boiled in wine and drunk, as also all manner of inward and outward wounds, if they be washed or bathed therewith, the decoction also being drunk comforteth the heart and strengtheneth the stomach and a cold brain, and therefore is good in the springtime to open obstructions of the liver. It helpeth the wind colic. It also helpeth those that have fluxes, or are bursten, or have a rupture. It taketh away spots and marks in the face, being washed therewith. The juice of the fresh root, or powder of the dried root, hath the same effect. With the decoction. The root in the springtime steeped in wine doth give it a delicate flavour and taste, and being drunk failing every morning comforteth the heart. So I think when he says drunk failing, he means without failing. So it's good for the heart, and it is a good preservative against the plague or any other poison. It helpeth digestion and warmeth a cold stomach, and openeth obstructions of the liver and the spleen. It is very safe. You need have no dose prescribed, and is very fit to be kept in everybody's house. So there we have the Culpepper again. So I'll knock that off. I'll come and say what you're doing, and then I'll let you get on with your evening. Give us a hug. Yeah. Electric delivery, but don't know him, but farm is at the top of Wesley Street for a moment. Is it? Oh, right. Well, he might have moved, actually. I've not seen him for quite some time. Leave a like. Spit it out. Yeah, get it like, folks, if you like. If you don't. I'm alright. So, chaps and chapesses, thanks very much for joining me, Ray. You're a gem as usual. And I will see you.
For gender dysphoria. Get there? For gender dysphoria. He said, "We do not know who the transgender kids are for gender dysphoria." He said, "We do not know who the transgender kids are." One way or the other, we don't know who they are. You get that? We don't know who they are. Because that should sink in. They cannot actually identify who trans kids are except by them saying so. There's no